I'm Aurora, 32 years old. Some mornings I wake up and ask myself, what did I do so wrong to lose my entire family, just for protecting my child? I used to believe family was unshakable, until my own parents became the ones who hurt my daughter the most. Have you ever felt completely alone under your own roof? Or had to choose between staying silent and protecting the one you love most? Where are you watching from? Leave a comment, I want to hear your story. And if you're also searching for a place to truly call home, hit subscribe. Luna and our journey is just beginning. I'm an emergency nurse at Cedar Heights Hospital in Oregon. My life used to be a blur of back-to-back shifts, ambulance sirens blaring at 3 a.m., and exhaustion that settled deep in my bones. But none of that compared to the emptiness of raising a child alone after being betrayed by the one man I trusted most. 7 years ago, Chris and I got married before either of us understood real fatigue. He was working on his MBA and I was finishing my final year of nursing school. When that second line appeared on the pregnancy test, I didn't cry. I just stared at it for a long time, as if those faint smudges could reveal layers of my future. Chris panicked. I didn't. I wrote our daughter's name inside the cover of my first shift notebook. Luna. A name filled with dreams and unspoken promises. We tried, at least during the first 2 years. But as Chris's work trips became longer, strange perfume lingered on his collars and he dodged my eyes when I asked, "Do you still love me?" I knew. There was no more space for truth in our marriage. The divorce happened cold and fast. He agreed to send a small monthly payment, one that was often forgotten or delayed due to a bank issue. Luna was 3 then, still asking, "Where's Daddy?" every night as I tucked her in. I pushed through. Picked up overtime shifts, worked nights to afford part-time preschool for Luna. But the hardest part wasn't financial. It was the helplessness of having to ask the one pair of people I swore I'd never let control my life again. My parents. My father, Ronald, was once a CFO for a major restaurant chain in the Portland area. He retired early at 60 and lived with my mother, Helen, in a white 2-story house with a wooden fence and a lawn trimmed like a golf course. To the neighbors, they were the picture-perfect American retirees. Stable, well-off, respectable. No one knew that behind those closed doors were criticisms that dripped like acid. "You should have thought twice before having a baby with a man who had no foundation," my mother once said when Luna was 3 months old. "Told you not to become a nurse. Hard job, barely pays," my father added the day I told them I'd been hired in the ER at Cedar Heights. They never believed I could succeed without them. And I never forgave that. Still, when there was no one else, I had to make the call. Even with full mental preparation, my hands trembled as I dialed. "Mom, Dad, I've got 3 night shifts next week. Luna's teacher is out of town and I haven't been able to find backup care. Could you watch her for a few days?" Silence. The kind of silence that comes from weighing whether kindness is worth extending to the grandchild they didn't exactly favor. "Well, we'll have to check our calendar," my dad replied, voice as dry as recycled paper. They eventually agreed, on the condition that I pack all her essentials, meals, clothes, entertainment, medicine, and refrain from bothering them unless it's a real emergency. I packed Luna's things like I was sending her to battle. Her fox-shaped stuffed animal named Rusty, her favorite comic book allergy spray, and the knitted blanket her paternal grandmother had made. "Remember, be good, polite, and quiet like a kitten," I whispered, kissing her forehead before walking her up to their door. She nodded, those wide eyes glistening in the fading afternoon sun, arms clinging tightly to Rusty. I turned and walked away, not knowing that would be the last time I'd see her in her grandparents' arms. Because in just 3 days, the people I once called Mom and Dad would buckle my 8-year-old daughter into the backseat of their car, drive to the Oregon Child Welfare Office, sign a form stating they were no longer able to care for her, and board a flight to Hawaii with Olivia's 2 kids. All because they carried the Jensen name. And they were the children of the daughter they were truly proud of. I still remember Luna's 8th birthday party. A crisp October afternoon, golden sunlight filtering through red maple trees behind our house. I had spent the week preparing. A space-themed cake, star decorations, and a small telescope I'd saved up for by picking up extra shifts. But the only thing Luna asked, between bites of pizza and balloon bursts, was, "Mom, are Grandma and Grandpa coming?" I smiled softly, pulled her into my arms. "They're busy, sweetheart. Maybe they'll call." I lied. I had invited them. Texted. Told. Emailed. My mom replied with just 4 cold words. Olivia's hosting that weekend. Olivia is my younger sister. Olivia Moore, 30, Brown University graduate, married to a top attorney in Seattle with 2 blonde, fair-skinned, well-behaved, salad-loving children. If I was the grain of sand beneath someone's shoe, Olivia was the marble centerpiece my parents polished for display. I'd grown used to seeing Jackson, Olivia's son, whisked off to baseball every weekend in brand new gear, while Luna wore second-hand tennis shoes from the neighborhood thrift store. I used to think it was just a matter of finances until I watched my mother hand Madison, a 6-year-old princess fan, a full Disney gown for her birthday. Luna, by comparison, got a cracked box of crayon stubs and a rushed handwritten card. Did Grandma forget my birthday? Luna had whispered that day, staring at the box like trying to decode a cruel joke. I had no answer. Yet just a week earlier, Mom had called me at 9 p.m. sharp to ask, Olivia needs family photos for Christmas cards. Do you have a good camera or should you rent one for her? When I mentioned I was struggling through back-to-back shifts, she snapped. You're always busy. Olivia needs help. I tried addressing it once, directly. One Sunday afternoon, while Luna was playing with Legos in their living room, I poured tea and sat next to my mother. Mom, I began, I've noticed you put more effort into Jackson and Madison than Luna. She's starting to feel it. She didn't look up. Just kept organizing Madison's toys. Don't make drama, Aurora. I love all my grandkids. Olivia just makes it easier to be involved. She lives properly, not like you running around that hospital like a ghost. I remember the wind nudging the curtain near the windowsill, and a crack forming in my chest that I wouldn't realize was permanent until much later. When Madison's ballet recital took place at her private art school, my parents drove 4 hours to Seattle for it. My mom even called mid-drive to say, "Don't bother texting us. The drive's exhausting. Olivia needs peace." 3 weeks later, Luna had her first piano recital at the Eastwood Community Arts Center. I'd invited them with 2 weeks' notice. My dad responded 5 hours later. Busy. It's Aunt Shirley's anniversary. That time, Luna sat beside the old Casio keyboard, timidly pressing each note of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And when she finished and bowed, she looked around the recital room, scanned every row, searching for the 2 faces she still called Grandma and Grandpa. They weren't there. But the sadness was clear as the stage light shining straight into her eyes. I used to think I was strong enough to shield Luna from every wound. But no one told me that the ones caused by those she trusted the most aren't always wounds a mother can fix. One day, I had to pick Luna up early from my parents' house because Olivia had a stomach ache and needed to go to the hospital, and my parents weren't comfortable watching both kids at once. When I arrived, I found Luna sitting in the kitchen corner, eating a bowl of cold noodles, just watery broth and a few limp vegetables. "Sweetheart, are you okay eating that?" I asked gently. Luna nodded but couldn't hide the lost look in her eyes. Grandma said they had guests today, so she didn't have time to cook something just for me. I carried her to the car. We sat there for 10 minutes, engine off, her head resting on my shoulder as she let out a long, quiet sigh. She never asked me, "Why don't they love me?" But I heard that question in every tight squeeze of her hand, every quiet sigh before bed, every glance at the phone waiting for a call that never came. I started keeping notes. Every rejection, every uneven gift, every time Luna was overlooked. Not to hold a grudge, but to remind myself. Some things must never be forgotten if I want to protect her from what adults often call small stuff. Because those small things, when they pile up, become fractures. And if you don't stop them in time, one day they'll crack wide open and take the innocent child standing in the middle with them. My 3rd straight shift ended when the wall clock hit 4:13 a.m. I stepped out of the uniform collar stained with dried blood, eyes burning from lack of sleep. A snowstorm had hit Friday night, freezing Highway 42 and causing 3 consecutive pileups. The ER was overflowing. I couldn't say no when the charge nurse texted, "We need you now, Aurora." No one else has the experience to coordinate this. Luna was staying at my parents' house in Lakeview. 3 days earlier I had called, trying to sound calm as I made that all too familiar plea. "Mom, I need someone to watch Luna from Friday through Monday morning. Lisa's out visiting family in Idaho. I can't take off." My dad hesitated. My mom sighed. We're really busy, she said, but fine as long as you prepare everything in detail. Don't call unless it's necessary. I spent the whole afternoon packing. Luna's purple rolling suitcase was stuffed with labeled clothes, her zebra pillow, the children's books she was reading, her nebulizer, and a stack of notes scribbled with instructions. Don't forget Webster, Luna reminded me as I pulled the suitcase down the porch steps. Webster was her gray stuffed dog with the crooked ear, a gift from an elderly patient I once cared for. I bent down, adjusted her scarf. Be good for Grandma and Grandpa, okay? Just 3 days. I'll pick you up Monday morning. I promise. She nodded, those clear eyes full of trust, not a hint of doubt. I walked her to the door. My mother didn't come out. My father just stood blocking the entrance, saying, "Just leave the bags in the foyer." As Luna stepped inside, I heard a hushed voice from the kitchen. Sunday morning flight, right? Yeah. Let her bring the girl first, then we'll deal with it, my mom replied. I froze. My hand was still on the doorknob, but my head was spinning. Hawaii. Plane tickets? But I forced myself to leave. Those brutal shifts were waiting. I needed to focus. Monday morning, I was changing clothes in the break room when my phone buzzed. The screen showed Luna's school. Hi, Miss Miles, this is Nancy from the West Creek Elementary front office. Luna isn't at school today and we haven't received a notice of absence. I couldn't breathe. That's not possible. She's with her grandparents. They were supposed to take her to class this morning. We haven't seen anyone, Nancy said, now sounding concerned. Could you check on that? I raced out of the hospital before sunrise. The snow clung to the windshield like it was trying to smother every frantic thought in my head. The drive to my parents' house usually took 15 minutes, but that morning felt longer than my entire life. Their cream-colored house was sealed tight. No car in the garage. I used the spare key. Inside was complete silence. On the kitchen table sat a sheet of printer paper. My mother's handwriting, sharp, steady, without a hint of remorse. Sorry, dear. We can't keep watching Luna. We've asked social services to step in temporarily. They'll arrange better care. Reach out to them when you have time. Mom and Dad. My hands trembled as I held the paper. My throat closed. I called Child Protective Services immediately. After being transferred 3 times and confirming my identity, a woman named Carla finally spoke. We have a record of a girl named Luna Miles, age 8, placed at a temporary facility in the south part of town. The guardian who dropped her off claimed to be her legal custodian and stated that her mother was unavailable for long-term care due to personal reasons. No. I burst out, voice cracking. I'm her mother. I only asked them to watch her for 3 days. They had no right. Please stay calm, Miles, Carla said. We'll verify the file. But currently, the child has been placed in emergency foster care, following proper protocol. I jotted down the address. It was a small house in a quiet neighborhood, with a white fence and bougainvillea vines climbing the front porch. When I arrived, a middle-aged woman in a gray sweater opened the door, her face kind. You're Aurora? She asked. I nodded. She led me to the backyard. Luna was curled up on a swing, face buried into Webster. The second she saw me, she jumped up, running like she was being chased, throwing her arms around me so tightly it stole my breath. Mom, I thought you weren't coming back. I held her as we both collapsed onto the grass. I couldn't cry, couldn't speak. My heart was breaking with every little sob that shook her chest. Grandma and Grandpa said, you had to go really far, that you couldn't take me with you, so I had to stay with someone else. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to stay calm so she wouldn't be more scared. I still can't wrap my mind around it, how the same people who once cradled her in their arms, kissed her forehead as she slept, could drive their granddaughter to a state office like she was a stray cat, then get on a plane and fly off to Hawaii. And they called it a more suitable solution. The woman standing in front of me introduced herself as Janet Turner, a social worker with the Emergency Intake Unit of Salem's Child Protective Services. She held a thick file folder and a tablet in her hands, her expression serious but not unkind. I understand this is upsetting, Miles, Janet said, but in order to proceed, we need to verify the biological mother's identity, complete the reunification paperwork, and account for the irregularities in this case. Irregularities? I nearly snapped. What exactly did my parents tell you? Janet glanced down at the documents. According to the report, they claimed to be Luna's legal guardians, but were unable to provide valid documentation. They said the biological mother was on an indefinite business trip and unable to resume caregiving duties for several weeks. I collapsed into the chair like someone had punched me in the chest. I've been working triple shifts at the hospital, I said, breath catching. I have full custody. They knew I was scheduled to pick her up Monday. Janet nodded. I've reviewed the call log and the intake notes. Everything happened rather quickly, and the intake officer didn't follow all verification steps. It was a failure on both ends. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. On the table, my phone lit up with a social media notification. At olivia.m.w. Aloha from Waikiki #familytrip #grateful #blessed. A photo of my parents grinning on the sand, ocean behind them, Olivia's 2 kids playing with a beach bucket nearby. I turned the phone face down. Where is Luna now? I asked, my voice raw from restraint. She's currently staying with Ellie Monroe, an approved emergency foster placement. They live about a 20-minute drive from here. I'll take you. The Monroe home sat at the end of a tree-lined street, a white fence enclosing a tidy yard and carpeted front steps. Janet knocked. An older woman with braided silver hair opened the door, a reserved smile on her face, cautious but kind. This was Ellie. Luna's out back with my husband, Bill, she said. She's a sweet child but very quiet. Scared of bright lights. I passed through the kitchen and stepped out the back door. Luna was curled up on a wooden swing chair, her teddy bear Webster clutched tight in her lap like a talisman. When I called her name, she turned, fear in her eyes melting into stunned recognition, then collapsing into a choked sob. I thought you weren't coming anymore. I rushed forward, falling to my knees and wrapping her up in my arms. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. Luna wept into my shoulder. I rubbed her back slowly over and over, whispering apologies into the breeze that stirred through the garden. How many nights had she slept in unfamiliar rooms, listening to strangers' voices? How many lies had she been told? You called me, she hiccuped. You came looking. But Grandma and Grandpa said you had to go far away. My breath hitched. They said, maybe you weren't coming back. The words were soft as wind, but inside me a storm broke loose. That wasn't just cruel. That was enough to shatter every sliver of trust my daughter had left in grown-ups. After bringing Luna inside, Ellie made tea. Bill poured a small glass of milk for Luna. Janet took photos, double-checked living conditions, and signed off on the return paperwork. Before leaving, Ellie gently touched my hand. She asked us last night, did I do something bad to be left behind? She said slowly. You should know, words from grown-ups tend to linger longer in a child's heart than we expect. I nodded, biting down hard until I tasted blood. Once Janet was gone, I sat in the car for hours while Luna slept in the back seat. Sunset filtered through the windshield, the fading light mirroring the fury brewing in my chest. I turned my phone over. Olivia's post had racked up hundreds of likes. In the comments, I saw another photo. My mother building a sandcastle with Madison, her smile beaming. The caption read, nothing better than being with the kids you love most. Luna, absent from every image. I saved everything. Screenshotted each post, each comment, every tagged location. Not for revenge. For evidence. Because what they did wasn't just a lapse in judgment. They had deliberately erased Luna from their version of family for a few days of seafood and beachfront selfies. That night, I tucked Luna into her bed at our small north side apartment. I plugged in her moon-shaped nightlight and held her until her breathing softened. Outside, my phone buzzed. A text from Olivia popped up. What the hell, Aurora? The police just showed up at the hotel. What did you do? I stared at the screen. Didn't reply. Just saved the message under a folder labeled evidence. Because they abandoned her once. There wouldn't be a second time. I sat at my laptop, light pouring in from the window as I stared at the grid of photos Olivia had posted. In every frame, Dad in a Hawaiian shirt, grilling by the pool, Mom in oversized sunglasses holding a pineapple cocktail, standing between Olivia's kids. No sign of Luna. No message to me. No apology. I scrolled back to a post from 3 weeks ago, counting down to Maui. Mom booked the Ocean View Suite Flights snorkeling tour. Thanks for helping with the kids, world's best grandma. Photos of hotel confirmations, beach outfits hanging in their hallway, screenshots of airline tickets. All public. All unwittingly building a case against them. I opened a video call with Vanessa Rowe, an old college friend now practicing family law in Eugene. This isn't just a family dispute anymore, Vanessa said firmly after I laid everything out. Aurora, they knowingly submitted false information to temporarily remove your custody. That's potentially criminal. I dug my nails into my leg to stay composed. I don't want them jailed, I said. I just want to make sure they never get the chance to hurt Luna again. Vanessa nodded. Here's the plan. We file a complaint with Child Services for fraudulent claims. Then we report abandonment to Salem PD. I'll coordinate with Hawaii authorities through federal cooperation. I began organizing a folder. Luna's file. Everything went in. A scan of the note my mother left, the official CPS intake email, every post and timestamp from Olivia's account, and a photo of Luna in the Monroe's backyard. Eyes still puffy from crying, one sandal on the wrong foot, backpack strap clutched like an anchor. The next morning I went to the local police department. Lieutenant Natalie Curtis, who specialized in child protection cases, greeted me. You've documented everything thoroughly, she said after reviewing the file. We'll work with the prosecutor's office to assess criminal charges. Since the subjects are out of state, we'll need Hawaii PD involved. I handed her every detail about where my parents were staying. Ocean Breeze Resort, Maui, rooms 5C and 5D, booked under my father's name, Ronald Miles. Natalie lowered her head and signed the emergency transfer request to the Maui Police Department. That afternoon I got a call from an unknown number. Miles, this is Sergeant Jason Yamada with the Maui Police Department. We just received a request to assist in a federal-level investigation regarding the abandonment of a minor. I'd like to verify a few things before we proceed. His voice was deep, steady, and void of emotion. I confirmed the date Luna was dropped off, the note left behind, the timeline of my CPS contact, and the social media posts Olivia had made. We'll be contacting them tomorrow morning, Sergeant Yamada said. The hotel is cooperating, has shared hallway security footage and guest records. You can rest assured, everything will be thoroughly documented. The next morning at 7:35 I got a message from Olivia. What the hell did you do? The cops knocked on our door this morning. Jackson's crying. Are you insane? I turned the phone face down on the table. On my computer screen, an email from Vanessa had just arrived. Prosecutor has accepted the file. I'll keep you posted with developments. 10 minutes later, Sergeant Yamada called back. They looked surprised at first, but once we showed them the documents, their demeanor changed instantly. Your mother started crying. Your father tried to say it was a family misunderstanding. Can I ask, did they admit fault? I asked slowly. Not clearly. They claimed they thought you'd be away longer than expected and wouldn't return in time for Luna. But they failed to leave contact info with any agency. We'll transfer the case back to Oregon for follow-up. Most telling of all, they had no idea the hotel's hallway cameras recorded them wheeling luggage out the same morning they dropped their granddaughter at CPS. I let out a long breath. Not from exhaustion, but because in that moment I knew I was on the right path. No yelling. No breaking down in front of them. Just doing what was right step by step until the end. That afternoon, I brought Luna to meet a child psychologist at the counseling center recommended by her school. She sat on a soft blue couch, drawing a house, and wrote beneath it, "Where Mommy always comes back." I stared at the overlapping strokes of her colored pencils, my chest tightening. At 11:30 a.m., while waiting to submit additional documents at the courthouse, my phone rang from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, then picked up. The voice on the other end was all too familiar. And in seconds, every muscle in my face tensed. What were you trying to prove, Aurora? Olivia's voice was shaky with anger, but underneath it, panic. The police came to our hotel room. Jackson cried. Madison was shaking. You think this isn't overboard? Mom just wanted to relax. I stayed silent. After everything, that was what they cared about. Their image, their vacation, and a little girl left behind like forgotten luggage didn't even warrant a second thought? Olivia, I said quietly, each word dropping like ice on a marble table. I didn't abandon my daughter. Mom did. And no one, gets to make that decision but me. She let out a bitter laugh. Mom and Dad did everything for you all those years. You're always complaining. And now you bring the cops into our family trip? You call that protecting your kid? Or is it just payback? I hung up. Without a word. No explanation needed, for someone who thought other people's pain was just emotional exaggeration. 3 hours later, my mom left a voicemail. 2 minutes and 15 seconds long. I listened through my headphones while Luna drew at the kitchen table, her galaxy-shaped lamp casting spinning stars across the ceiling. "Sweetheart," she began, her tone more fit for a press conference than her own child. "Your father and I never meant to hurt Luna. We were just tired, overwhelmed, exhausted. I thought seeking third-party help was reasonable. You've been overwhelmed before, haven't you? I was only trying to support you. Is that really so wrong?" I asked myself. In her mind, what did support mean? Filing an abandonment report and vanishing off the map for 3 days? Toward the end, her voice softened, cold enough to chill the room. "As for the police and the legal action, I really hope you're not escalating this just because of emotional overreaction." I didn't respond. I saved the voicemail to an external drive, then flagged the file under additional evidence. That night, Luna went to bed early. I sat by the living room window, watching the streetlight glow shift behind sheer curtains. My phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. Aunt Marlene. I hesitated, then answered. The woman on the other end didn't waste words. "I've heard everything, Aurora. I know how your mother operates. Don't let them convince you you're going too far." I leaned my head against the wall. "I don't even know what's reasonable anymore," I whispered. "I just want to protect Luna." "You're doing the right thing," Aunt Marlene replied, firm and low. "Because this isn't the first time." My hand tightened around the phone. "What do you mean?" A long pause. Then she continued. 1986. When I got pregnant with Josh before I was married. Your mother forced me into a women's shelter. She didn't want the family's name tainted. Told the relatives I ran off on my own. That I wasn't reachable. For a few seconds I forgot how to breathe. Auntie was there for almost 4 months, she continued, alone, broke, with no friends. Thank God for your father. He secretly sent money and handwritten letters through a friend. Without that, I don't think I would have made it. I blinked rapidly. Not because of tears, but because of the fury caught in my throat. No one in the family ever mentioned it, she said, because your mother always knew how to rewrite the story, how to paint herself as the victim or the martyr. I straightened in my chair. Would you be willing to testify? If needed. I don't mind. Better that than let my niece grow up in a world where she believes she was abandoned because she wasn't good enough. My voice cracked. Thank you, Auntie. The next morning, Olivia posted a long message online, along with a photo of my mom hugging Jackson. No one is perfect. But this grandmother has given everything for her grandkids. It's not fair to judge an entire story from just one angle. The comments split into 2 sides. Some of Olivia's friends wrote things like, "Hope this blows over soon," or "Family comes first. No need to drag it to court." But I noticed a few remarks from anonymous accounts with no profile pictures, dropping lines that hinted at something deeper, like, "Cops don't just knock unless there's something real." I didn't engage in that battle. I wasn't looking for an audience. I wanted justice. And a safe space where Luna could grow up without fearing she'd be tossed aside again. At exactly 9 o'clock, I received an email from the prosecutor's office. Case has moved to preliminary hearing division. Witness summons proposed. Hearing expected in 2 weeks. I shut my laptop and took a long breath. None of them thought I'd take it this far. They were used to an agreeable, quiet, compliant Aurora. But that woman no longer exists. The one standing here now is Luna's mother. And I will never back down when my child is treated like an afterthought. The final hearing took place in courtroom 6 of the Marion County Courthouse. It was a small room, dim yellow light from round ceiling fixtures making the air feel heavy. The defendant's bench was empty when I arrived, but minutes later my parents were led in with their defense attorney. Ronald wore a gray suit, dark tie, his face creased like he was the misunderstood victim of a terrible injustice. Helen had full makeup on, lips pressed thin, eyes avoiding contact with anyone, including me. Judge Smith, a woman with neatly combed salt and pepper hair and a voice as steady as a scalpel, glanced over the case file. Per the agreement between prosecution and defense, the court accepts the sentence: 6 months probation, 36 hours of community service at the Family Support Center, and 3 mandatory counseling sessions per month for 1 year. No one spoke. I sat beside Vanessa, gripping my notebook, eyes locked on Luna, who was seated to my left. She wore the pearl-colored dress I'd picked out the night before, hair neatly tied up, hands clutching Webster like it was an invisible shield. Aurora Miles, the judge turned her gaze to me. If you wish to address the court, you may step forward. I stood and approached the witness stand. My voice didn't shake, though every word cut deep like a thin blade. I'm not here for revenge, I said clearly. I'm here because I want it recorded, in the legal system, in my daughter's memory, in her medical and psychological records, that abandoning a child is not a minor oversight. It doesn't get erased with the word accident. I paused, then turned to face the defendants. My parents might say they were tired, overwhelmed, but they didn't tell anyone. They didn't text me, didn't call the school, didn't leave contact info. They dropped my daughter at Child Protective Services and flew to Hawaii like she was excess baggage they didn't want to pay fees on. No one interrupted. Even their lawyer bowed his head. When I returned to my seat, Vanessa gave a small signal. Luna slowly stood up and walked to the stand. I had told her she didn't have to speak if she didn't want to. But she had written on a note the night before, "I want them to hear me." She stood tall, eyes on the judge, then turned to look at my parents, her grandparents. When I was taken to the stranger's house, I thought I was being punished for being bad. Luna's voice was soft but steady in the near-total silence. I didn't understand why Mommy didn't come. But the scariest part was when Grandma and Grandpa said, "Mommy might not come back." I cried every night. I thought I was thrown away because I wasn't good enough. I turned my face to the side. My throat clenched. I still love Grandma and Grandpa, but I don't know if I can trust them again. Luna's final words seemed to draw the air out of the entire room. My mother bowed her head, fingers gripping the strap of her purse, lips trembling slightly. My father exhaled hard, hands nervously clasped. Judge Smith nodded. "Thank you, Luna. You were very brave." After the hearing, the court allowed a supervised 2-minute meeting between my parents and Luna. She chose to sit on the far side of the table, holding Webster while I stood close by. Helen spoke first. "We're sorry, sweetheart. We didn't think things would go this far." Luna said nothing. My father added, voice rough, "I miss you. I hope you'll forgive us." She lifted her head. "I don't hate you, but I don't want to be lied to again." After the visit, the supervising officer gave positive feedback on Luna's ability to set boundaries. They recommended continued family therapy, paired with individual sessions to reinforce her sense of safety. Luna's therapist, Andrea Home, told me during a follow-up appointment, "What matters most now is that she feels heard. She was abandoned in silence. Now she needs to know her voice counts." I nodded. Andrea suggested some emotional reconnection activities like writing letters or drawing in place of words. Luna chose to create a paper mailbox at the head of her bed. Every night she'd slip in a small note saying how she felt that day, happy, upset, anxious, or just needing a hug. I'd read each one while she slept and respond in the morning with a drawing, a little note, or a long, tight hug. As for my parents, under the court's ruling, they began volunteering at the Hope Meadow Children's Center every weekend. I didn't know whether they had truly changed or were simply fulfilling obligations. I didn't care, because the most important part of this story was never about them. It was in Luna's eyes each morning, calm, no longer confused. In the way she could leave me for school without clinging to my coat in fear. In the little cards she drew of me as a superhero named Mom, with a purple cape and eyes that could fly. They could keep posting pictures of the perfect family online. As for me, I was building a real home. One where a child knew she would never be left behind, even if the world shattered into pieces. Spring returned, sunlight spreading gently across the steps of my small home in a quiet neighborhood in North Salem, where I'd planted new lavender bushes after Luna said they helped her breathe easier. A soft breeze swayed the white curtains and the smell of cookies baking filled the kitchen. No more sudden phone calls in the middle of the night, no more dodged messages. Just me and Luna, and a little world slowly healing with every breath. Luna began enjoying school more. She no longer avoided her classmates' eyes like before. One afternoon when I came to pick her up, her homeroom teacher pulled me aside with a drawing in hand. "Luna drew this today," she said, her voice light like the turning of a page. I looked down. It was a simple yet detailed drawing. A small house, a backyard full of stars, a woman in a purple cape hugging a child holding a teddy bear. In the corner, scribbled in orange crayon, were the words, "Family is where you're always allowed to come home." I thanked her and quickly turned away, not wanting anyone to see my eyes getting wet. In March, I was invited to the hospital director's office. When I walked in, Dr. Beltran, the former ER chief for over 20 years, placed an envelope in front of me. "We need a new coordinator for the nurse residency program," he said, "and you're the best fit." It took me a few seconds to respond. Not because I was surprised, but because for the first time in a long while of just trying to survive, I realized I still had the strength to move forward. The new role gave me more flexible hours, better pay, and more time with Luna. We started new routines. Thursday nights became pizza and cartoon nights. Sundays were for the park and books. Nothing had to be perfect, just honest. My best friend Ellie, once a physician's assistant in oncology, became a constant in our lives. She often came over on weekends, bringing her signature apple pie and playing Uno with Luna late into the night. One time Luna whispered to me before bed, "I wish Ellie were my real aunt." I smiled and whispered back, "In your heart you can choose anyone." The person who surprised me most was Louise, Chris's mother, my ex-husband's mom. We'd never been close. But after the trial she called and said just one thing: "They didn't deserve my granddaughter. But you do." Since then she regularly mailed handwritten cards for special occasions, called Luna every weekend, and even drove 4 hours just to attend Luna's classroom poetry recital. No fuss. No demands. As for Olivia, things weren't cruel anymore, but they were fragile. 6 weeks after the hearing she sent me a short text. "I'm sorry. Not for the legal stuff, but for staying silent too long." I replied with a simple thank you. No reopening, no shutting the door. I needed time to tell the difference between true remorse and guilt wrapped in apology. 3 weeks later, Olivia showed up at my door, unannounced. She brought a coloring book titled My Feelings Journal and placed it on the table. "I thought Luna might enjoy drawing in this," she said. We sat in the backyard where the lavender had just begun to bloom. She told me how Jackson was asking more questions about why Luna didn't visit Grandma anymore. That Madison had started drawing pictures where everyone stood far apart, no one touching. "She probably understands more than we think," Olivia said, eyes staring into the distance. I said nothing. I didn't forgive. I didn't reject. I simply listened. For Luna's 9th birthday, I didn't throw a big party. Instead, we invited 6 people: Ellie and her daughter, Grandma Louise, Andrea, Luna's therapist, and the Monroe couple, the family who once took her in when she'd been abandoned. Luna chose the theme, the solar system. She made the invitations by hand, cutting out planets, picking a cake with a shooting star on top. That night, after everyone left, she climbed into my lap, holding a small folded piece of paper. "I wrote this in therapy," Luna said. I unfolded it. It read, "Mom doesn't have to be like anyone else. Just be mom. That's enough." I held her tight. Out there, some people are still trying to cover their mistakes with gifts, excuses, and false smiles. But in this house, with lavender in bloom, a child's laughter, and the people who chose to stay when I was breaking, I had found my real family. Not bound by blood, but by love honest enough to heal. Aurora's story proves that family isn't defined by DNA, but by actions and kindness. Even after being betrayed by her own parents, she chose to protect her daughter with unwavering strength and compassion. Aurora didn't just regain custody, she built a home rooted in genuine love from friends, coworkers, and those who stood by her when everything collapsed. In real life, family is sometimes made of the people we choose, not the ones we're born to. What are your thoughts on Aurora's choices and her journey to protect her daughter from harm? Share your opinion below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories about family and healing.